So there's currently a big debate going on in the forum about how much HUD there should be on the screen. And a player named Zephyro made a post, and the leading developer responded to it a few times. And I find myself disagreeing with the original post on a few points. And my fear is that if that feedback goes into the game unchallenged, it's going to do damage to HUD layout. Okay. He makes several assumptions which I don't agree with. So for example, to know key information, I need to actively look away from my target. This makes it very difficult to track multiple things, especially in such a fast-paced dogfight. And the next one, the red box below is where they showed the ammo gun count is. Look how far away everything is compared to the last image. It's roughly twice the distance. And this matters in a competitive fast-paced game. So here's the thing about looking away from the target. I think there's this weird assumption that real-life air combat is about having the screen full of information right in front of you. And if you just have to glance away for less than a second, then you're going to lose the fight. And I don't think that's the case. Because even in high-performance maneuvering, let's say you're pulling 9Gs in a curve, and you have to get the enemy target into your crosshair, and you have to fight a missile. At that point, you don't care about your fuel or navigation instruments or anything else. You just focus on, you probably feel the G-forces and getting the firing solution in. And if as a player you have difficulty to glance away from the center of the screen to something down here, then I think you're too close to the monitor, and or the monitor is too big for the distance at which you're looking at it. And here's the thing about the ammo counter. You probably don't care about the ammo counter in an actual real-life dogfight, because you probably know how much ammo your ship has loaded, or your plane, and you probably have it in your mind how much you fired off it. You probably have a rough idea about it. So even if you didn't have an ammo counter, you will be able to handle it. Because I think in World War II, even most advanced planes didn't have an ammo counter for their guns in their cockpits. And he says that this matters in a competitive, fast-paced game. And here's the thing, Star Citizen will never be a competitive game. It's going to be a great adventure game, but it will never be a competitive thing where there's going to be some type of league gameplay like in Counter-Strike or later Call of Duty games. It will always be some adventure game where you pick and choose different situations and you have your own sci-fi adventure. And it's not fast-paced, because if the developers get the flight model slowed down to realistic War Thunder levels, including that you actually have to work hard to get your target in your sights, especially atmospheric flight, and then fire a shot off, that's not fast-paced. That's actually relatively slow-paced and methodical. So how should the HUD be? I think the HUD should be, the first thing the HUD should be is it should be completely toggleable. Everything in the HUD should be able to toggle, which means if I don't like the compass taping up here, the game shouldn't assume for me that as a player, I should always want this on. No, I don't. So the way I want to fly with a completely clean glass, everything on the HUD, on the MFD rather, and I won't be able to turn anything off. Now, some players probably want more sci-fi Iron Man experience where the screen is full of it. I don't like that idea, but they should be able to toggle that on if they want to. So that's why developers should make everything toggleable, absolutely everything, okay? And about the layout, let's say you're flying with the Gladius and you have two MFDs like within view like that, okay? So I'm going to show you that's a cockpit from World War II, that's DCS, that's a Spitfire Mark 9, that's mid-World War II technology. Notice how the cockpit is divided in instrumentation. Notice the middle panel. It's physically separate from the other things. And those are the 6 instruments that show you what your plane is currently doing in terms of flight performance, how fast you're going. It's hard to see, that's the artificial horizon. This is whether you are climbing above the zero or whether you are descending below the zero. You probably want to know that in Star Citizen 2 if you're flying through clouds. If you lose orientation, that's your altitude, compass tape, and how much your tail is slipping away from the center line of the front plane. And over here you got engine-rated parameters. Now in Star Citizen, you probably don't have engine RPM, but you probably have engine temperature and all that. So how could we adapt that cockpit for the Gladius? Now what I would do is, let's say you have 2 MFDs, one over here, one over here. What the game should do is replicate this type of World War II instrumentation either by numbers or by having digital versions of these analog gauges with the pointers like that. And you will be able to cast up to one of them full screen on one MFD or two of them next to each other. So as a player, as a pilot, I can pick and choose. Let's say I want the right MFD, I want the altimeter, and I would like to know if I'm descending or climbing. That's great if you're flying through clouds. And on the left side, I probably would want compass and some other navigation thing. And I actually like the idea that you never have enough MFD to put all the information in it. You have to pick and choose what you want, because I think there's gameplay depth. So if you're a combat pilot, you probably want weapon systems, speed, perhaps altitude. If you're a cargo pilot who doesn't expect combat, you probably want cargo information and basic flight parameters. And then players who still want everything on the screen, they can still toggle it on. And I think a World War II plane is actually pretty good layout guide for how to lay out the cockpit.